Sorry, it's sorry, it's been hot. My AC's been broken the last couple days. If you haven't, I'm playing Persona 4 Golden on PC right now on my Twitch, Hiding Coon. So, check that out. ODDTAXI wasn't a show that made me cry, and that's somewhat notable because, I'll be honest, I cry at friggin' everything. ODDTAXI was a show that, for me, did something far more rare and special, and that was, it made my jaw drop. It didn't strike me too hard at first, like I could tell you that it has some sharp, witty writing or that I was immediately endeared to it, but like, what does that even mean? Like, the longer I try to explain it, the more boring it would be. So, let me paint a picture to encapsulate the feeling. ODDTAXI is a show that starts with high mystery stakes, that of a kidnapped girl with weird implications that our main character, Odokawa, possibly did it or has some connection to someone who did. Which, despite seeming like a cynical but good-hearted guy, sets suspicion even on our guide through this new, interesting world. Aside from that, though, the show starts fairly unassuming. There's a extended conversation about social media and seeking validation that kept riding the line between insightful and boomery. I made the mistake of thinking that this show was going to be about the modern world and social media, which normally feels, at this point, a bit tired to me, but is really just a gentle way of presenting us something that we're already familiar with, and then pushing us into the broader topic of this holistic and connected world. ODDTAXI has that feeling to it. Holistic, meaning it focuses on so many different characters, from teenagers to old people, from pharmacists to yakuza, from taxi drivers to cabaret workers, young, old comedy duos, male, female, every single respective kind of personality or lifestyle you could consider, basically. It covers the whole spectrum of things and really ends up representing the idea of Tokyo in an interesting, developed, and yet still small scope. While I personally enjoyed this because I like more down-to-earth takes on Tokyo and Japan, which sounds weird I'm sure with the aesthetics of the show, but we'll get into that later, I didn't really get invested into the show until a few episodes in. That's where someone in a skull mask shows up and shoots up a cabaret club that Odokawa is currently happening to be at. Of course, it's because he's there that the person has shown up. From the very first episode, there's a high tension, a threat of death, directly, and yet the characters start to endear themselves to you. Around episode 3, I was like, is this one of those shows where everybody's a scumbag? Because, like, that's cool and all, but it's not really my favorite thing. But no, this is one of those shows where everybody has some good deep down. Well, almost everyone. You constantly, along with Odokawa, get endeared to some characters just for you and Odokawa to go through the same moment of reality check where he yells at himself and has to reinforce it in his head that these people, despite them having human seeds that sprout their behaviors, those behaviors are still evil. Like, that guy that you're starting to like, he's still not a good person. This trick in your head is because you only naturally get endeared to people who do bad things the longer you spend with them, because very few people don't have those human cores. Going on, this show has the works, man. It has bank robbery, murder, extortion, torture, kidnapping. It has a black market for drugs. It's kind of insane, but it never feels too overwhelming, and instead has this unsettling optimism about it. Small things like where one of the failed comedy duo start to get famous and secretly start dating an idol, someone who we know to be beloved by another fan character, but despite her being two-faced, she really can be honest and open with him in this secret context. It feels strangely really touching. Even as we see the manipulative schemes that she plots, the slow building, subtle ego, and aloofness of the comedian as well, there's something relaxing seeing them seek this comfort that is entirely on the same level. It's kind of too complicated to go into detail in any way that doesn't spoil or just overwhelm you, but the way that all of the characters in the show are connected is amazing and a total mess. Like the perfect mess, because it's true, people meet by accident. They know each other for decades. They meet each other a week before you see them. They are super close. They are super distant. They had past romantic relationships, financial agreements. They met at work, met from hire, met from dating apps, and as big and wide as the world is, it still manages to feel, well, manageable. I hesitate in mentioning it too much, but Odokawa is a really charming protagonist. He's also wholly uncommon in anime, even if his traits aren't unheard of. He's cynical, callous, untrusting, but a lot of that comes from childhood trauma and lived experience that get elaborated upon in the show. He also isn't rude or mean, really. He's just a bit socially unaware, awkward, and stern. And the best part is, everyone around him seems to see that in him, and they accept this awkwardness for what it is. Under his tough exterior, though, Odokawa is a genuinely kind-hearted guy, and he never goes out of his way to overstate or even draw attention to those kind-hearted behaviors. If I could assign a trait that means the most of him, he is wholly grateful. Grateful for everyone in his life who has helped him along the way, and dedicated his life toward repaying them in his appreciation. More so, I'm pretty sure he's like 41. He's a middle-aged, slightly overweight taxi driver. You couldn't pick a more average, typical guy, and yet he symbolizes the good of society so gently, with all the fake crassness and disillusionment that causes us to unfortunately and oftentimes mistake that. One thing I didn't say, though, is that he's a walrus. And that's because he isn't. I can't get too far without mentioning the first thing people see when they look at the show, but hey, all the characters look like animals. Yes, but they actually aren't. Unlike other shows to use animals as an aesthetic or a narrative device, like Beastars and Brand New Animal, there aren't any animals in Odd Taxi. I mean, yeah, I guess there are technically animals, like if you go to the zoo or something, there's like animals, but they're normal animals, they aren't like furries. Instead, it's a lot more special than that, and it starts to become apparent early on just what that is. So what is it, if not in literal an aesthetic choice? Well, it serves a double purpose. One, for a down-to-earth crime drama, it helps us instantly know who is who by making them extremely different-looking, abstract, and colorful designs. It takes away from the confusion a viewer may have. But secondly, it's intrinsically linked to how Odokawa sees the world, and they don't just serve as some cute way of viewing things, but are an active narrative tool that helps Odokawa having a better ability to distinguish people than others, and in the same way that we can as a viewer. Aside strictly from the plot, though, it also services as a hint toward his overall character arc, as it becomes quickly noticeable to those paying attention that he is the only one who mentions or refers to people looking like certain animals. And when the other characters are brushing him off or being visibly confused, it does a lot to make us think that something else is up here, and it is. Not to spoil you, but I was pretty certain that I'd figured out what was going on by episode 6 or 7, and was gladly surprised when it turned out right. Like, you know when there's a mystery and you get it right, but it feels too obvious and cheap, or a mystery is way too outlandish that feels out of pocket? Well, this is like that strong third category, where you pick up the obvious hints and it makes an interesting picture. You can imagine where it is going, and you're just waiting for the ball to drop. But when you finally see the picture you imagined, it's 100 times more beautiful than you had imagined. Like, let me create a mental image for you. Imagine you're like 10 years old and it's summertime, but you haven't been told about a vacation. Nevertheless, your parents seem extremely excited, so you're sitting in the back seat and they're driving along, and they seem like they are excited to tell you something, but they won't say it. Then, as you drive hours and hours and hours, still not being told where you're going, you see little glimpses of the ocean in the distance. This is assuming you're not like already living in Florida or something. And as you get those, you start to get the idea that, are we going to the beach? Are we gonna go to the beach? Are we on vacation right now? You know what's going on? And then suddenly your parents pull into Disney World, and you find out that you're gonna be there for like 2 weeks, and you're going to everywhere, and you got a great spa and everything. I have never experienced this. My family's poor, but it's still, think about it, okay? If you hate Disney, I don't know, Orlando, I don't care. It's like that kind of experience. That's what it feels like watching Odd Taxi to the end. Like you were right, and you were unbelievably happy and surprised in which ways you were and weren't. And that ending, I don't think I have ever seen a show so gracefully stick the landing on so many interlocking webs since, Well, I honestly don't know, because not many shows even attempt something this grand. It's like a perfect bow coming back to the holistic theme when the centerpiece moment happens and seemingly every major character, unbeknownst to any of the others, bears witness to this singular moment that in some way or another connects to a person who has deeply been affected in their lives. It's perfect. Anime is sort of a self-eating snake. It's been described as an incestuous industry, repeating, borrowing, referencing, and retooling all the same pieces in unique and different ways, sometimes adding a thing or two, and don't get me wrong, I love that about anime. I love how the more that you watch, the better that you grasp. And not just grasping of Japanese culture, but the culture around otaku culture. It's deeply interesting to me, and the greater context for me lends to greater enjoyment. But ODDTAXI is one of those few examples that really feels like it's not just retooling, but entirely leading a charge of its own. There are connections to be made for sure. There always will be. But there was such a greatly realized vision here that despite the emotionally resonant moments, the at times weird OST, the graphic terror, despite those things, I never cried at ODDTAXI. But I did something far more rare. I ended the show just sitting in awe. Hey, I know what you're probably thinking. Whoo, hiding in public. Ooh, I like those words. Give me more of those words. Can't wait to munch on them. Yum, 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 yum. Love me some words. And you know what? That's great to hear, friend, because I have been posting a lot of videos recently that haven't exactly been grabbed by YouTube or its algorithm, and I would love to get my channel back on track. I know I didn't upload for a while. That's mainly because of moving being way more than I was expecting. But I am back on track and trying lots of creative and interesting and fun new ideas that I hope you'll support. If you watched any of my videos, you will know that I pretty much reply to hundreds of different comments on every single video. I say pretty much because that gives me an out, but it genuinely applies to every video. So if you have any thoughts, the success of this video, ODDTAXI being criminally underrated this season, if you want to see this show get more service, more attention, please leave a like, share it on Twitter, follow me on Twitter, hiding in public. Hey, follow me, baby. And leave your own individual comment down below, and I'll try to reply to you as I have done. I am at 175,000 subscribers. I reached 100K last summer, and I am still, for better or for worse, doing everything when it comes to the video editing process. I am the script, the audio editing, although this video probably have less audio editing, the video, the thumbnails, everything is all me. I'm probably one of the only YouTube channels, especially in the anime sphere, of my size that doesn't actively pay for editors. So I really appreciate your support on Patreon and anywhere else that you can give it, like Twitch. I'm playing Persona 4. And yeah, so I'm gonna retire this kind of cheap Big Joel bit. What did you think of me being on camera? It's not going to be a regular thing because, quite frankly, I don't think I do anything super regularly when it comes to the way that I make my content. But I like experimenting and trying new and interesting things like I have been with the last handful of videos. So let me know what you think. Maybe I will do it again. I set up my new living room in here, and I think it looks sexy. It looks so good. I love how it looks. Tell me if you notice anything over there, by the way. I'm not sure if it's high enough res to even be seen. But yeah, I'm going to stop rambling. Thank you so much to my top patrons. Friendly Neighbor, Whizbang2093, Daniel Frousing, Jared Summers, Rune, My Name is Klein, and all of my other patrons, as well as Twitch supporters. And thanks for watching once again. And finally, like always, I hope to see you soon.